What if I told you that the key to unlocking your potential isn't always about saying yes? What if the real power comes from learning how to say no? How does that sound? No, a word we've been taught to avoid, a word that, for many of us, feels like failure or rejection. But what if I told you saying no could be the very thing that transforms your life? That it's the foundation for creating boundaries that protect your peace, your energy, and your time. Let me take you back to a time when I didn't know how to say no. I used to say yes to everyone, to everything. I'd say yes to staying late at work, yes to hanging out, even when I was exhausted, yes to tasks that drained me, all because I didn't want to let anyone down. I was trying to be the nice guy, the helpful one, the one everyone could count on. But the problem was, in the process, I lost myself. I didn't realize it then, but saying yes to everything was slowly taking me away from who I truly was and what I truly wanted. I was giving my time, my energy, my focus to everything but the things that mattered most to me. And before I knew it, I was burnt out, overwhelmed, lost. It's like when you have a leaky faucet in your house. You don't notice it at first, just a little drip here and there. But over time, that little drip turns into a constant flow of water that you can't ignore. The damage builds up, and suddenly, you have a problem that's much bigger than you realized. That's what happens when you don't say no. The little things, the small tasks, the favors, the demands, they all add up. And over time, they start to steal from you. They steal your time, your energy, and your sense of purpose. You might think you're doing the right thing by saying yes to everything, but the truth is, you're neglecting the most important person in your life, you. When you don't put yourself first, you can't show up for anyone else in a meaningful way. You're just going through the motions, and deep down, you know you're not living the life you were meant to live. I'm sure you've been there too. You've said yes because you didn't want to disappoint someone. You've said yes because you were afraid of missing out. You've said yes because you thought it was the right thing to do. But let me ask you this. How many times have you said yes only to end up feeling drained, resentful, or even worse, lost? How many times have you sacrificed your happiness, your peace, your mental well-being just to please others? How much of your life have you given away to things that don't serve you? Shetty once said, when you say yes to others, make sure you're not saying no to yourself. And that, my friend, is the truth. Because when you keep saying yes to everyone else, you're saying no to your dreams, to your peace, and to the life you deserve. I know it feels selfish to say no, doesn't it? You might think, what if they get upset? What if they think I don't care? But what's truly selfish is staying silent, allowing people to take your time, your energy, and your focus without ever thinking about your own needs. Saying no is an act of self-respect. It's not selfish, it's necessary. It's the only way to protect the things that matter most: your time, your energy, and your peace of mind. But here's the problems. Most of us have been conditioned to think that saying no is wrong. We're taught that to be liked, to be respected, we have to please others. We have to keep saying yes, even when it's draining us. We feel guilty for saying no. But let me tell you this, saying no is one of the most empowering things you can do for yourself. It's the moment you take back control over your life. I want you to imagine something right now. Imagine saying no to the things that drain you. Imagine creating space in your life for the things that truly matter. Imagine saying no without guilt, without fear of judgment, and without anxiety. Imagine the peace that would come from being able to protect your time and energy. That's the freedom that comes when you learn the power of saying no. You see, saying no is not about closing doors, it's about opening the right ones. When you say no to distractions, you say yes to focus. When you say no to toxic relationships, you say yes to healthier, more fulfilling connections. When you say no to fear and self-doubt, you say yes to confidence and growth. Here's the hard truth: you will never grow if you keep saying yes to everything. You'll stay stuck in a cycle of burnout, stress, and resentment. But when you start saying no to things that don't align with your purpose, you start opening up to a life of clarity, purpose, and fulfillment. But how do you start saying no? How do you take this first step toward reclaiming your time and your energy? Stick with me, because in the next section, I'm going to share exactly how to say no without guilt, how to set boundaries that protect your peace, and how to finally take control of your life. Because once you understand the power of saying no, everything changes. You will unlock the freedom to live a life aligned with your true self, not just the expectations of others. And that, my friend, is the path to true empowerment. You've probably felt it, the hesitation, the guilt, the fear, that moment when you know you need to say no, but your heart races, your mind starts to spin, and your stomach tightens with anxiety. Why does saying no feel so hard? Why does it seem like such an emotional battle? The truth is, it's not just a word, it's a challenge. Saying no confronts your deepest fears and insecurities. It brings up all the emotions we've been conditioned to avoid: the guilt, fear of rejection, and the weight of disappointing someone. I've been there. I've said yes, even when I knew it wasn't right for me, just to avoid that uncomfortable feeling of saying no. I've said yes to people, situations, and opportunities that drained me, all because I didn't want to be seen as selfish. And every time I did, I felt like I was giving a little more of myself away. I felt like I was losing my voice, my peace, and my power. It was a slow fade, a creeping sense that I was losing control of my own life. It's a pattern many of us fall into. The endless cycle of trying to please, trying to meet others' expectations. But the truth is, saying no is not about rejecting others, it's about accepting yourself. When you say no, you're not saying no to the person asking, you're saying yes to your own well-being. Saying no is not about shutting others out. It's about building a wall around your peace, around your focus, around your time. And you have the right to do that. You owe it to yourself to protect the most valuable thing you have, your time. Why is it so hard to say no? Because we've been taught that saying no is wrong. We're taught to please others, to be accommodating, to say yes when people need us. We're afraid of rejection, of judgment, of being seen as selfish. We think that if we say no, we'll disappoint people. But guess what? Disappointing someone in the short term is nothing compared to disappointing yourself in the long run. We've all been there. We say yes to an invitation when we really want to rest. We say yes to an extra project at work even though we're already overwhelmed. We say yes to the same toxic relationships time and time again. Why? Because we fear the consequences of saying no. But here's what we don't realize. Every time you say yes when you really want to say no, you're draining your energy, your time, and your peace. You're making sacrifices that don't serve you. And at some point, That adds up. You'll find yourself emotionally exhausted, mentally drained, and disconnected from your true self. The truth is, saying no is an act of self-respect. It's a powerful, courageous step that shows you value yourself enough to set boundaries. It's not easy, but it's necessary. When you start saying no, you start reclaiming your life. You start prioritizing your own needs, your own peace, your own goals. And over time, you'll discover that this simple word, no, becomes a tool for freedom, for personal growth, and for living with purpose. There's a life-changing lesson in saying no, and it's one that many successful, fulfilled people practice every day. You don't have to say yes to everything to be a good person. You don't have to say yes to everything to be liked or respected. In fact, often the people who respect you the most are those who understand your boundaries and honor your no. In this journey, you will learn that saying no doesn't mean rejecting others. It means accepting and respecting yourself. Saying no allows you to protect the time and energy you need to focus on what really matters to you. It clears the path for you to say yes to your dreams, your goals, and your well-being. You see, the power of no isn't about closing doors to people or opportunities. It's about opening doors to the life you want. It's about having the courage to let go of what doesn't serve you, so that you can make room for what truly fulfills you. Here's the most important lesson I've learned here. When you learn to say no to distractions, you say yes to the person you are meant to become. You say yes to your potential. You say yes to your happiness. You say yes to the life that you're worthy of. So, how do you start saying no without guilt, without fear, and without the pressure to please? How do you begin the journey of saying no with strength and clarity? The answer is simple. You start small. It's a muscle, and like any muscle, it grows stronger with practice. In the next section, I'll share exactly how to practice saying no with confidence, and how to build the boundaries that will protect your energy, your peace, and your future. The journey begins with this decision. Will you start saying no today? Now that you understand the power of saying no, it's time to take the next step, setting boundaries. Setting boundaries is not about shutting others out. It's about protecting your peace, your energy, and your focus. Boundaries give you control over how your time is spent, who you spend it with, and how much of yourself you're willing to give. They are the invisible lines that keep you aligned with your purpose and ensure that you're not giving away more than you can afford to lose. Let me ask you this. How many times have you said yes when you felt overwhelmed, knowing that it would drain your energy and leave you with nothing left for yourself? How many times have you bent your own values, put your needs aside, or stretched yourself too thin for the sake of others? You see, the root of this struggle is a lack of boundaries. And without them, we give away our time and energy without even realizing it. But when you begin to set boundaries, you start to take control. You take back your time. You take back your life. Step 1: identify what matters to you before you can set healthy boundaries. You need to know what you're protecting. What truly matters to you? What are your top priorities in life? Is it your health, your career, your family, your personal growth? Once you identify what matters most, you can begin setting boundaries around those things. Think about it. What's the point of saying no to everyone else if you're not clear about what you want to say yes to? When you have clarity around your values, your boundaries will reflect those values. You will say no to anything that doesn't align with what's truly important. For example, if your health is a top priority, you'll set boundaries around your time to make sure you're prioritizing exercise, eating well, and getting enough rest. If personal growth is important to you, you'll set boundaries around your time to ensure you're dedicating it to learning, reading, and growing. And if your family is a priority, you'll learn how to protect your time with them, even if it means saying no to other people or commitments. Step 2A. Communicate clearly and confidently. Once you've identified your priorities, the next step is communicating your boundaries clearly and confidently. Setting boundaries doesn't mean being rude or dismissive. It means communicating your needs with respect and clarity. You don't have to apologize for setting boundaries. Your needs are valid, and it's okay to put yourself first. For many of us, communicating boundaries can be challenging. We fear that others will be upset, disappointed, or angry. We don't want to be seen as difficult or selfish. But here's the truth: setting boundaries is not about rejecting others, it's about honoring yourself. When you learn to say no, respectfully and confidently, you show others that you value your own well-being and that they should too. It can be as simple as saying, "I'm sorry, I can't commit to that right now," or "I need to focus on my health, so I'm going to have to pass on that." If you're clear and confident in your response, people will respect it. And if they don't, well, that's a reflection of their lack of respect for your time, not a reflection of your worth. Step 3. Enforce your boundaries consistently. Setting boundaries is one thing, but enforcing them consistently is where the real transformation happens. It's easy to say no once, but when people start pushing back, when they try to guilt you into changing your decision, that's when most people falter. And that's when boundaries begin to break down. Here's the thing: boundaries only work if you enforce them. If you let people walk over your boundaries once, they'll do it again. But if you stand firm and stay consistent, people will start respecting your boundaries. This is the crucial part of boundary setting. It's about reinforcing the message you're sending with your actions. It might feel uncomfortable at first. It might feel awkward to say no when you're used to saying yes. But every time you reinforce your boundaries, it becomes easier. You start to develop a stronger sense of self-respect and self-worth. And over time, you'll notice that people begin to respect you more because you're respecting yourself. It's also important to remember that boundaries are not a one-time thing, they're a constant practice. You will face moments when you're tempted to break your own boundaries for the sake of others. But if you're clear about your values and what matters to you, you'll have the strength to stay consistent. And consistency is the key to maintaining healthy boundaries. Step 4. Embrace the discomfort of growth. Setting boundaries isn't easy. It's uncomfortable. It's scary. But here's the reality: growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone. Growth happens when you challenge yourself, when you push past the discomfort, and when you say no to things that are not aligned with who you want to become. Every time you enforce a boundary, you take a step toward a more empowered, confident version of yourself. You learn that your worth isn't dependent on how much you give to others, but on how much you honor your own needs. Saying no is an act of self-love, and every time you do it, you become stronger and more confident in your ability to protect your peace. It's easy to think that saying no will make people angry or upset. But what you'll soon realize is that people will respect you more when you're consistent in your boundaries. They may not like it at first, but they'll eventually see that you are a person who values yourself and your time. And that's the kind of respect that builds true, healthy relationships. Imagine a life where you're constantly saying yes to everyone and everything, where you're never fully present because your mind is always scattered across a million different tasks. You're running on empty, feeling resentful, and wondering why you can't seem to find the time for the things that matter most. That's what happens when we don't set boundaries. We end up overwhelmed, burnt out, and unfulfilled. Now, contrast that with a life where you've set clear boundaries. You wake up feeling refreshed, knowing exactly where your energy needs to go. You're fully present in your relationships, your work, and your self-care. You know how to say no when you need to, and in doing so, you're creating the space for a life that's more intentional, more fulfilling, and more aligned with your purpose. When you set boundaries, you take control of your life. You stop letting the world dictate how you spend your time, your energy, and your focus. Instead, you create the space to become the best version of yourself. And when you start living in alignment with your boundaries, everything starts to shift. You become more confident, more focused, and more peaceful. Your relationships improve. Your productivity skyrockets. And most importantly, you start living a life that is truly yours. But what happens when you start saying no and setting boundaries? How does it affect your personal growth, your relationships, and your future? In the next section, I'll show you the incredible transformation that occurs when you commit to setting and maintaining these boundaries. The power to change your life is in your hands. Let's dive into what happens next. When you start saying no and setting boundaries, something incredible happens. You don't just start saying no to the things that drain you, you begin saying yes to your life, your goals, and your potential. You start living with purpose, not just reacting to what life throws at you. This shift, this transformation, is the key to stepping into the person you were meant to be. And that is a life-changing moment. Imagine waking up every morning, knowing exactly what your day holds. You don't feel overwhelmed by everyone else's demands. You don't feel the pressure of constantly trying to please others. You wake up with clarity and focus, ready to tackle the day with intention. You've created space in your life to focus on what matters most: your health, your passions, your dreams, your purpose. It's a feeling of empowerment that comes from taking control. No longer are you at the mercy of distractions, of other people's needs, or of the demands that drain your energy. When you begin setting boundaries, you realize that you are the one who determines how your time is spent. You realize that you have the power to protect your energy, to say no to things that don't align with your values, and to say yes to the things that truly matter. Think about the life you've always dreamed of, the career you've wanted to build, the relationships you want to nurture, the personal growth you want to experience. All of that is possible when you start living intentionally. And living intentionally begins with setting boundaries. Without them, you're just floating through life, being pulled in every direction. But with clear boundaries, you create a foundation for the life you've always wanted. You begin to see that each decision, each no, is a step closer to the life you've imagined. Let me ask you this: how would you feel if you never had to worry about being overwhelmed again? How would it feel to have the space to breathe, to focus, to give your best to the things that matter most? It's not a fantasy. It's the reality that comes from setting boundaries and reclaiming your time. When I first started setting boundaries, it felt like a battle. It wasn't easy. Saying no was uncomfortable at first. I had to let go of the fear of disappointing others, the guilt of saying no to things I used to say yes to. But over time, it became easier. And as I practiced saying no, something incredible happened. I began to experience a shift in my mindset. I felt lighter, more focused, more at peace. The stress that once consumed me began to fade away. Here's what I learned: when you say no to distractions and things that drain you, you say yes to clarity, to focus, to personal growth. You begin to live in alignment with who you really are, not who others expect you to be. You start to feel empowered because you know that every decision you make is taking you one step closer to your goals. That transformation, that shift in mindset, is priceless. And I want you to feel it too. Imagine walking through your days with a sense of purpose, knowing that you are living with intention. Your time, your energy, your focus, these are the building blocks of your future. And when you protect them with healthy boundaries, you're paving the way for a life that's filled with meaning and fulfillment. Let me tell you something else. Setting boundaries doesn't just give you control over your time, it frees up your emotional energy. When you say no to things that drain you, you stop carrying the weight of unnecessary stress, guilt, and anxiety. You stop feeling like a victim of circumstances. You start to feel like you're in the driver's seat of your own life. And that's where real freedom lies. You'll also notice that your relationships change. As you start setting boundaries, you begin to attract people who respect you, your time, and your needs. Boundaries are not walls that keep people out. They are bridges that create healthier, more respectful connections. When you set boundaries, you show others how you expect to be treated. And when people respect your boundaries, it strengthens the relationship. You might be worried about losing people when you start setting boundaries. But here's the truth. The people who truly care about you will respect your boundaries. The ones who don't, well, they weren't the right fit for you in the first place. By saying no to people who drain you, you make space for the relationships that truly nourish and support you. And here's where the transformation really begins. When you start living in alignment with your boundaries, your life becomes your own. You stop feeling like you're constantly reacting to everyone else's needs. You stop feeling pulled in 1,000 different directions. You begin to feel more grounded, more centered, more in control. And that feeling of control is incredibly empowering. So, what happens when you start setting boundaries and saying no? Everything changes. You begin to experience the peace that comes from knowing you're protecting your energy. You start to make progress toward your goals because you're no longer wasting time on things that don't serve you. Your confidence grows, your relationships improve, and you start living a life that's more aligned with your purpose. And here's the most important part of all: you start to live for yourself. You stop living to please others or meet their expectations. You start living to meet your own. You stop being reactive and you start being intentional. That's the freedom that comes with boundaries. In the next section, I'm going to show you exactly how to start maintaining that freedom. How do you stick to your boundaries when life gets tough? How do you enforce your boundaries and protect your peace, even when it feels uncomfortable? Let's dive into how you can make these changes last. Because the freedom you feel today doesn't have to be temporary, it can be permanent. When you start setting boundaries and saying no, something amazing happens. You no longer feel like a victim of circumstances, constantly reacting to everyone else's needs. Instead, you begin to feel a shift, a sense of control, freedom, and peace you've never experienced before. The chaos, the overwhelm, the burnout, all of it starts to fade. It's like you've suddenly woken up to a new reality, where your time, energy, and focus are no longer scattered. They are aligned with your values and purpose. This transformation is not a one-time change, it's a gradual unfolding. It starts with the simple but powerful act of saying no. And as you continue to practice, you begin to see the deeper changes. You start showing up for yourself. You start protecting your own mental and emotional space, which allows you to give your best to the people and things that truly matter. And that's when the magic happens, when you start to live your life from a place of intention, not obligation. Imagine waking up in the morning, not feeling drained before the day has even started. Imagine feeling excited about the day ahead, knowing that you're not weighed down by endless commitments or obligations. You've set boundaries, and those boundaries have given you space to focus on your dreams, your health, your relationships, and your personal growth. This is what true freedom feels like, knowing that your time is your own, that your energy is yours to protect, and that your peace of mind is not up for negotiation. You start to realize that you're the one who determines how your life is shaped, not the people or circumstances around you. Step into your power. When you start saying no, you'll also begin to notice a shift in your relationships. The people who truly value you and your time will respect your boundaries. They will see that you're serious about protecting your energy, and in turn, they will start treating you with more respect. Boundaries help to separate those who truly care from those who take advantage. And in the process, you create space for deeper, more meaningful relationships. Here's the reality. When you say no to people who drain you, you create space for those who truly elevate and support you. You stop feeling obligated to people who don't value your time, and you begin to make room for the relationships that nourish your soul. It's like clearing out the clutter to make room for the beauty that's meant to be there. And this shift isn't just about cutting people out of your life. It's about recognizing the people who truly contribute to your growth, your happiness, and your success. You'll begin to notice that the more you protect your boundaries, the more you attract the right people into your life, people who respect you, who support your goals, and who encourage you to be the best version of yourself. Healthy boundaries lead to better relationships. They're the foundation for relationships that are built on mutual respect, trust, and understanding. Instead of constantly feeling drained by others' expectations, you start experiencing the joy that comes from giving and receiving in a balanced, healthy way. The boundaries you set protect the space between you and others, allowing for true connection to thrive. But the transformation doesn't stop there. When you set boundaries, you also begin to protect your emotional energy. You stop letting external circumstances dictate how you feel. You stop allowing stress, frustration, and overwhelm to take over. You create a space where you can respond thoughtfully to life's challenges, rather than reacting impulsively or emotionally. You stop being controlled by the demands of the world and start responding from a place of power, clarity, and peace. You'll notice that when you set boundaries, you also begin to trust yourself more. You begin to respect your own needs and desires, which leads to a more fulfilling and empowered life. Every time you say no, you are choosing yourself. You're choosing what is right for you, and that builds confidence. The more you honor your boundaries, the stronger your sense of self becomes. You begin to believe that you are worthy of your time, your peace, and your energy. It's a shift from living reactively to living proactively. This is the life of purpose and intention, the life where you're not just surviving, but thriving. When you protect your time, you create space for the things that truly matter. When you stop saying yes to everything, you open up the possibility to say yes to the things that align with your goals and values. You're not living in the chaos of everyone else's demands. You're living in the flow of your own dreams and aspirations. You begin to see that your time is one of your most precious resources, and you don't waste it on anything that doesn't serve your highest good. The truth is, the more you protect your time, the more you protect your potential. You stop giving away your energy to things that drain you, and you start investing in what will elevate you. The goals you've always wanted to achieve, they become possible when you start aligning your time with them. Your dreams, they become clearer when you prioritize what truly matters. Every decision you make, creates the space for your potential to unfold. But the process isn't always easy. Setting boundaries takes practice, patience, and courage. It's a constant process of redefining your limits and staying true to yourself. At first, it might feel uncomfortable. You might fear that others will judge you or that you'll disappoint people. But as you continue to practice setting boundaries, it gets easier. And the rewards, are so worth it. You'll feel lighter, more focused, and more connected to your purpose. As you begin to step into the life that's waiting for you, I want you to remember this. Your boundaries are not walls that keep people out. They are the gateways to a life of freedom, fulfillment, and authenticity. When you say no to the things that don't serve you, you say yes to the life you deserve. Saying no is not rejection, it's an invitation to your best self. It's the first step toward building a life that is truly yours. A life where you are in control, where you are living with intention, and where you are creating the future you've always dreamed of. And so, I leave you with this. The more you say no to distractions, the more you say yes to a life of purpose, focus, and growth. This is your time. This is your journey. And it starts with this simple but powerful choice. Will you start saying no today? The transformation you're seeking, the life you're dreaming of, is waiting for you. All it takes is the courage to draw the line, to set your boundaries, and to reclaim your time. The world is yours to create, and it begins now.